Hey, thanks for watching this video. I'm Nick from Transform My Poker. I'm not Fitch. I don't know who that is. Never met him. And today we're going to talk about the number one place you should be looking for extra chips in your poker game. This particularly applies if you're a break-even player, or if you're a small loser in the games you play, or even if you're just a small winner and you're not building up your bankroll and moving up the limits quickly enough. Now, if that's the case for you, I can pretty much guarantee you're not looking in the right place when you try and figure out where you're going wrong. The reason is that after you've played a session of poker, whether it's a cash session or a tournament session, your brain is going to look in the wrong place for the answer, because your brain is going to be drawn towards the kind of flashing siren things in the session you've played. And those are two types of hands. Big hands that you've played, let's say you had aces and they had queens, or ace king versus queens, those kind of big pots. That's what you're going to think about. And the other thing you're going to think about is the close decisions you had. So should you have called that person? Were they bluffing or not? Should you have made a fold? Those kind of things. Now, the thing about those hands is the first set, the big hands, they kind of play themselves, right? Whether you had the ace king or the queens. The second type of hand, well, if it was a really close decision, it doesn't matter too much. Yes, we want to get better at those decisions, but they're not going to make a massive difference because they're close. In fact, the number one way you can make a difference to your results is to look at hands where you had the winning hand and ask yourself this killer question: did I make the most chips I possibly could? Did I make the most chips I possibly could? Because I promise you, having coached hundreds of players, thousands through my online courses, and having seen a lot of poker players' databases and watched a ton of hours of players playing, this is the number one thing people get wrong, especially when they're a break-even player and they're struggling to kind of get that big win rate that I know you want. So how do we go about not leaving chips on the table when we have the best hand? Well, I want you to try two different experiments the next few times you play. Number one is you're going to bet more often. So bet more often. I promise you, neither of these are going to be rocket science. They're going to sound simple, but they're going to help you out a lot. So bet more often. What I mean by that is, when you have the best hand, or you think you have the best hand, I want you to make sure you're taking every opportunity to bet it. Now, this is particularly true when you think you have the best hand, but you're not sure. Your instinct might be to take the safe option and check, right? Say it's on the river, it's quite a big pot, a vaguely scary card comes. Your instinct is going to be, I don't want to take a risk here. What I want you to do is push yourself to bet in those positions, because you'll be amazed at how many times you call. And if it is on the turn in a big pot or on the river in a big pot, if you don't bet and you could have bet, and you had the best hand, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. That could be 15, 20, 30 big blinds, depending on how big the pot is. And that pot alone, and that decision alone, can be the difference between a winning session and a break-even session. So for the next few times you play, if you're in one of those spots where you're not quite sure, but you think you might have the best hand, you must bet. Now, this isn't going to be the perfect way to play forever. I just want you to get used to pushing yourself in those situations and not leaving money on the table. All right, tip number two is going to be to bet bigger. Bet bigger. This one is even easier. So, in spots where you're betting and you want your opponent to call, I want you to experiment with betting bigger. Now, at first, you can just add 20% to what you would have normally bet. But if you want to experiment, try doubling what you would have normally bet. Really mess about with this and find out how big a bet you can make to get called on. Because again, if you would have bet, say, 500, but your opponent would have called 1,000, well, you've just left 500 chips on the table, and there's a good chance you're doing that. This is going to work particularly well against beginning, weaker players, players who have a kind of calling station tendency. That kind of player is going to work really well at, because they don't really notice how big your bets are. It's also going to work better when your opponents are deeper stacked, because, you know, human nature, they've got a lot more chips in front of them, they don't mind putting them in. But I want you to go out and experiment with betting bigger, because this can be a free source of chips, right? It was a bet you were going to make anyway, you wanted a call, well, make sure you're betting the maximum. And in general, when you review your poker playing, ask that question I gave you at the start of this video. Am I making the most I can when I have a winning hand? Because that is the secret, that's the source of hidden chips in your game that's stopping you from getting past being a break-even or a small winning player and actually crushing the game you're playing in. All right, I really hope this has given you value. Go out and do these two experiments with an open mind and an open attitude. They will give you a great return, I promise. This is the place to look if you are struggling to get the win rate that you want. All right, if you've enjoyed this video, then you can get more really easily by hitting subscribe here or underneath the video on YouTube, and you'll be notified when we produce another free video for you, which will be very soon. And if you'd like some more advanced help and you're serious about getting results from your game, then come over to my website, transformmypoker.com. The link's on screen right here, transformmypoker.com. Enter your email over there and I will send you a free series of training videos, some of our best stuff that will really produce the results you want on a consistent basis if you put it into action. All right, good luck in your poker, whatever type you play and whenever you're playing, run good because that's the hard part.